All right, welcome back to Black Bear News, where everything is connected. How you all doing? Good to see you. Thanks for hanging out with me today and every day on these here interwebs. Say what? Contemplative Pragmatist says, here in West Virginia, most of the flowering trees are already shedding their blossoms. Wow. Okay. Oh. Check, check. I came in with a crackle. Tell me if it's okay now. Sorry about that. You never know. What's up, Rockfinners? We're live on Rockfin. Please hang out. If you enjoy ad-free viewing, you can avail yourself of the show on Rockfin, which is a pretty cool free speech platform where you don't get censored. You don't get ads. You don't get censored. And, you know, they're generally real nice. And we're also live on Colin. What's up, Colin people? How you doing? Colin is also pretty cool. I have never known Colin to do any censoring, so that's pretty cool. You got to love that. So kudos to Colin and Rockfin for being friendly to free speech and friendly to people saying what's on their mind or saying what they need to say, want to say, because we need more of that. Yeah, the weather is wacky, ain't it? Ain't it? I don't know how long the show is going to be today, guys. I've had I'm going to do my best. I've had kind of a crazy week where I've had to do a lot of work this week. But thank you, Poppy, for sending me some links, some good links to check out. I appreciate you. Yeah, it's been yesterday. I did not do the show because I had to do some other things. But you know, I feel like I miss something if I don't do the show. I feel like something is missing in my life. All right. And all right, so let's check out this. Don't push myself too hard. Yeah. Well, honestly, you know, I would prefer to be doing the show than doing other things that I don't like to do. It's kind of a, you know, ridiculous thing to say. But anyways, we continue to see more and more of these 1,000-year events. This is a article about the Fort Lauderdale downpour. Here's why the downpour in Florida just wouldn't stop. In some ways, it was the Florida man of storms, not quite knowing when to say when. Usually thunderstorms fizzle out after they run out of rain or get cold air sucked in, but not Wednesday when the storm that hit Fort Lauderdale had the warm and moisture-rich Gulf Stream nearby. The end result was that more than 25 inches of rain, drenching and flooding Fort Lauderdale in 6 to 8 hours, that ranked among the top 3 in major U.S. cities over a 24-hour period, behind Hilo, Hawaii's 27 inches. In 2000, and Port Arthur, Texas, 26.5 inches in 2017. While it could happen in other coastal places in coastal America, Florida has the right topography, plenty of warm water nearby, and other favorable conditions. Just 2 days before the downpour, Weather Prediction Center forecaster David Roth told colleagues that conditions were lining up similar to April 25th, 1979, when 16 inches of rain fell on Fort Lauderdale. What parked over Fort Lauderdale on Wednesday was a supercell, the type of strong thunderstorm that can spawn killer tornadoes and hail and plows across the Great Plains and Mid-South in a fierce, fast-moving but short path of destruction. Several meteorologists said supercell. We've been hearing that a lot lately, right? Normally a cell like that would snuff itself out in maybe 20 minutes or at least keep moving, but in Fort Lauderdale, the supercell was in a lull between opposing weather systems. It lasted 6 to 8 hours. You had this extreme warmth and moisture that was just feeding into the cell because it had a bit of spin to it. It was actually acting like a vacuum and sucking all the moisture back up into the main core of the system. Yeah, so excuse me. Anyways, the amount of rain that fell prompted the National Weather Service to call it a 1 in 1,000 year chance. We continue, and this is the crux of the story, is we continue to see more and more of these 1,000-year weather extremes in a major city. In major cities, the whole definition of normal is changing. That is the crux of the point, the argument. If over the period of a few years you get several 1 in 500 year, 1 in 1,000 year, 1 in 1,000 year event, well then they're no longer 1 in 1,000 year events. They are just things that happen, pretty often. You should be ready for these things to happen pretty often. Atmospheric rivers and such. Supercells, bomb cyclones. And these things, because we live in a warmer climate, these things will happen more and more. Or more often, right? And well, I'll go back to the article. Physics states that in a warmer climate holds more moisture in the air, about 4% more for every degree Fahrenheit, 7% for every degree Celsius. But warming also increases the intensity of storms, amplifying that moisture level. I mean, that's fairly kind of simple science, right? Nobody's like making that up. It's not something, it's pretty straightforward science there. Nobody's pushing an agenda when stating things like that. Nobody's like, what? That's not even, it's fairly simple. Anyways, one-day downpours have increased in frequency and magnitude over the last several decades and will continue to increase in the coming decades. University of Oklahoma meteorology professor Jason Furtado said in an email, these heavy rainfall events coupled with sea level rise on the Florida coast need to serve as significant wake-up calls for the residents of South Florida about the severe risks that climate change poses to them. Again, I refer back to the woman that says there's, sea level rise is not, that's not really a thing. It's not, okay. The current governor of Florida recognizes that the sea level is rising. Since at least the Obama administration, they raise the roads because the king tides come in and wash out the roads. all the time. So that, there are these obvious signals that something different is happening. That would be sea level is rising. It just plain old facts. And you can't, you can wish it away to the cornfield if you like, but, so sorry, it doesn't work that way. Well, since the Obama administration, they have, they understand sea levels rising, and they have a fund to help people and businesses relocate. And other states have the same things going on in the Carolinas and elsewhere. They understand that sea level is rising. They understand that homes are going to wash into the ocean. There's going to be damage. Things are not going to be the same. They are, helping people relocate. That speaks to the idea that, if the sea levels are rising, that means that the ice is melting. That means that the planet is getting hotter. It's just very simple chain of events. It's a very simple chain of events. It takes a lot of work to not recognize a very simple chain of events. Oh, I agree with you, Denver. Obama was every bit as bad as Biden is. He was worse because he could at least speak in sentences. And, people looked at him as a very articulate, in control, even compassionate, articulate, compassionate, in control kind of, human being. And he was none of those things. He was articulate, of course, but, doing things to help people, really concerned about doing things for the people, or, the betterment of the country, or, et cetera, et cetera. What he was interested in, what he was good at, was concealing the fact that he was advancing the agenda of fascism, basically, under the guise of, progressivism. And he got a lot of people to walk along with him. Biden isn't nearly as convincing. Not on any level. Biden is, just a crash test dummy, occupying the seat of the presidency, and he's barely there. And somebody, obviously other people are, working the levers behind the scene. And it's fairly obvious to anybody who has, two brain cells to rub together what's going on. Indeed, Caleb Rochester. He put everybody asleep, Obama. Deacon G 1959 says, here in Florida, if you have Citizens Insurance, they will force you to have flood insurance if you live in a flood-prone area. Some people are looking at $800 to $1,000 increases over the next 3 years. Ouch. He did. Obama bailed out. Obama shook hands with Bush on the way out. Hey, don't worry, we'll take it from here. We'll start a couple more wars. We'll bail out the banks. We'll kick people out of their homes. We'll reinforce the Patriot Act. He was like, no worries, Bushy. We got you. We will carry this thing forward. Lots of people still adore him. Yes, contemplative prag, but a lot of people have had their eyes open too. Talk to the people in Chicago who are being displaced by the presidential library. They're pissed. A lot of people got wise to Obama even while he was still president. A lot of people were like, yeah, I don't know about that guy. Anyway, so there's that. Europe is facing drought. Oh, thank you, Matthew McDermott. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Very kind praise. Um, anyways, from Fenrir, this is in France, but anyways, let's see. Faced with the drought, part of Spain lost its harvest. There will be nothing. These testimonies are chilling. These testimonies are in French, I think. And the situation seems close in France. In the Pyrenees, Orientals, and Aude, climate change has won a battle. It must not win any others. So they're having a really difficult situation with the possibility of widespread crop losses in Europe, also in the U.S. Not a lot of people are talking about that. But, if you have, consider the prospect of multiple areas where food is grown failing all at the same time worldwide, that is not, obviously that's a that's a scary situation, right? We'll break here and say a good way to support the channel is at buymeacoffee.com. Oh, I got a member. New Day 2020 SC is now a member. Thank you, New Day, for joining the old membership. The Buy Me a Coffee membership. I think New Day sent me a message. Said, "Hey Kevin, I'm really impressed with how you manage the show, how everything is messed up in the environment and government regardless of party affiliation in a really smart way. Keep up the great work." Thanks. Thanks, man. I'm assuming you're a man and maybe I shouldn't. Thanks. Thanks you. Thanks, New Day. New Day could be a woman. Let's see. Oh, and then, you can also contribute to the show. Venmo, Cash App links. Are also cool to you guys. Super chats and super rays. And thank you all to... Thanks to everyone who supports the show. I appreciate it. Yeah, you're right. Deacon, no one said Jack when the Mississippi started going down. I didn't hear a lot of the I didn't hear a lot of the truther community, remarking on like, why all the rivers are drying up. What's going on here? I mean, a few. But just pointing out, just interesting things that are not talked about that seem pretty major. on the scope of like, oh, that would be interesting to talk about with people, right? To cover in a journalistic way these things that are pretty major, that the loss of widespread crop losses that might affect the food supply due to drought or extreme weather events. Or all the rivers, the major rivers of the world, all getting really too low, all in the same summer. Not a peep. Not a point of interest. Well, look at this other article that Poppy sent me. Anyways, let's see. Oh, sorry. It's about Senegal. And their battle with fossil fuel incursion, the incursion of fossil fuel drilling, which they say is supposed to be good for your economy, but doesn't always work out that way. Sorry. My coffee drinking is paramount. In St. Louis, Senegal, when the gas rig arrived off the coast of St. Louis, residents of the seaside Senegalese town found reasons to hope. Fishing had long been the community's lifeblood, but the industry was struggling with climate change and COVID-19. Officials promised the drilling would soon bring thousands of jobs, and diversification of the economy. Instead, residents say the rig has brought only a wave of problems, unemployment, and more poverty. And it's forced some women to turn to prostitution to support their families. Jeez. To make way for the drilling of some 15 trillion cubic feet of natural gas discovered off the coast of Senegal and neighboring Mauritania in West Africa in 2015, access to fertile fishing waters was cut off. Say what? With the creation of an exclusion zone that prevents fishermen from working in the area. At first, the restricted areas were small, but they expanded to 1.6 square kilometers, roughly the size of 300 football fields, with the construction of the platform that looms about 6 miles offshore. Soon the work was overtaking the Diatara, a word in the local Wolof language for the fertile fishing ground that lies on the ocean floor beneath the platform. With 90% of the town's 250,000 people relying on fishing for income, the catch and paychecks were shrinking. Boxes of fish turned into small buckets, then nothing at all. St. Louis, Senegal's historic center for fishing, has faced many troubles over the past decade. Sea erosion from climate change washed away homes, forcing moves. It's just fake. These people that have to move their entire homes away from the shore, like they do in Alaska, like they're doing in other places. It's just fake. Anyways, the local men, thousands of foreign industrial trawlers, many of them illegal, snapped up vast amounts of fish. And local men in small wooden boats couldn't compete. The COVID-19 pandemic shut down market sales of the tiny hauls they could manage. Well, must have been really helpful to shut everything down. The rig was the final straw for St. Louis, pushing it to the brink of economic disaster. According to locals, officials, and advocates, The benefits promised from the initial discovery of energy off the coast haven't materialized. Production for the liquefied natural gas deal, planned by a partnership among global gas and oil giants BP and Cosmos Energy and Senegal and Mauritania state-owned oil companies, has yet to begin. Traditionally, many women make a living processing fish while the men catch it. Sons, husbands, and fathers spend weeks at sea. But with the restrictions, families couldn't feed their children or pay rent. Jesus. They begged for leftovers from neighbors. Some were evicted. Senegalese officials and the gas companies say people should just be patient as jobs and benefits from the gas deal will materialize. But the locals say they've been stripped of their livelihoods and provided with no alternatives. That's driven some women to prostitution, an industry that's been legal in Senegal for 5 decades, but still brings shame for those who break cultural and religious norms. For them, prostitution is faster and more reliable than working in a shop or restaurant, jobs that don't pay well and can be hard to find. Jesus. 4 women who have started having sex with men for money since the rig came to town shared their stories with the AP on condition of anonymity because of the shame they associate with the work. They've hidden it from their husbands and families. They say they know many others like them. The women explain the influx of cash as loans from friends and relatives. They know prostitution is legal but won't register with Senegalese officials. That would mean a health screening and official ID to carry with them. They're unwilling to legitimize work they say has been forced upon them. Is this necessary? Is the question I ask. I mean, of course, to somebody who lives in the in the paradigm of, all growth is good and, we need to keep expanding and we need more fossil fuels and we need the economy, blah, 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 jobs. But is it necessary to disrupt a simple way of life for a small group of people? The answer is, of course, it's not. It's not necessary. Of course, it's not necessary, and probably, But we do that. We've done that all over the planet. My T-shirt is made with oil. I mean, and I don't know. I don't know what you mean by that. Everything is made with oil. I don't know what you mean by that. I mean, we all know that we live in a paradigm that we're stuck in. I mean, it's hard to get unstuck. And so that doesn't really, I mean, you could look at it in a couple of ways. You could say, that's no excuse. You should, do everything you possibly can to, I mean, I don't know. But you do what you can where you can. You cannot do everything, People have to function and live and pay bills, in this paradigm that we live in. And people have to wear T-shirts, I guess. Anyways, it doesn't mean that I necessarily, that doesn't mean I support it. I mean, I drive a car every day, but it doesn't mean I support the driving of vehicles. I mean, I'm on some levels forced to, just by this entire, how everything is arranged. That doesn't mean I support it. Anyways, what I'm saying is, you know, it's like the Dr. Seuss story, the Thneeds, the truffula trees, right? Like they're, there was a paradise, right, with all the animals and creatures lived among the trees and nature, and everything was great. Um, right, but somebody was like, "Hey, if we cut down these trees, we can turn them into stuff, and everybody will buy them. It'll be great. We'll get rich, and we'll all make lots of money. Oh, but but the forests are dead. Oh, but the trees are all gone. We run out of trees. Oh no. Right, there's a cost. There's a cost to that. Yeah, I'm not going to argue like I could get an electric bicycle. You're right, I could, which would be fine for about three things that I have to do during the day. But for the other things, I absolutely need a car, unfortunately. In a perfect world, you know, I would have enough money to go, buy a house off grid and, like live. Uh, Just trust me. It would be great. But uh, should we all be able to live as well as Paul Kingsnorth, right? Who lives in a very enviable way, right? Paul Kingsnorth. If you've all seen a documentary on Paul Kingsnorth and how he lives off grid with his family, um, his two children. But the way that he was able to do that was he made a lot of money in finance. So we've talked about this before. But if you're kind of a regular schlep and you got to schlep to the job and then schlep home, or maybe your job is actually driving your car. Maybe driving your car is part of your job. If you got to do that in order to pay the bills, there's kind of the tyranny of the immediate is what it's called. But is it really necessary? The answer to a lot of people and to a lot of indigenous cultures, of course, is not really. Could have been doing a lot. It seems cool and fun and interesting and like wow and like oh, ooh, right. All the gadgets and all the cool things we can do. Seems cool. We are amazing. All the things that we have, you know, cooked up with our brains. But there's a downside to it. All right. I want to play this clip from RFK Jr. talking about the lunatic plans they had at one time for blowing up the planet and seeing it as an option, right? Like this is a strategic option for the U.S. See if we can get sound on this. I had an issue. There we go. So he's talking about what they were talking about under JFK when JFK was president. And they brought up some plans. Only 30 million Americans will die in a war against Russia, but we will kill 130 million Russians. Goes on to say the same kind of psychopaths only more emboldened now are still running the U.S. They are thinking the same way about the war in Ukraine now, and they will use the same sick logic for a war against China. They have no soul, no compassion, no spirituality, and no humanity. Just sociopathic obsession about conquering and ruling the world. So let's listen to this. A very short clip.
Was we got to go to war. Their justification was we got to go to war with the Soviets before they catch up to us, before they close the missile gap with us, because we had more missiles and more bombs than them at the time. And, in one presentation, they did the math to my uncle. They said, because my uncle said, how many people are going to die in this war? And they said, well, we're going to kill 130 million Russians, and we'll only lose 30 million Americans. And that, to them, was victory. They're just...
So, there you go. Going on to say, in 1956, in 1956, the U.S. military drew up detailed plans to nuke the Soviet Union as well as China. The plan was to drop hydrogen bombs not only on Moscow and Beijing, but also on cities like East Berlin and Warsaw. Just for a good measure. It would have also destroyed the whole world due to the so-called nuclear winter. Yeah. I mean, they had all kinds of crazy plans. Yes, Basil Peterson, 800 plus military bases while the bridges people live under are falling down. Lightning Rod says, the latest global rumor mill has stated that by October 2036, magma intrusions will end the Earth and climate change is a symptom, not burning oil. Okay. Climate change is a symptom of magma intrusion. Is that the new denialist tack? Is that where they're going next with that? Yeah, there's actually a movie about Oppenheimer coming out, and I want to see it. I know that it will probably just make me angry. And they talk about, I don't know, I was watching a trailer for it last night. They were talking about how they didn't know if it was going to self-quench. Right? They didn't know. Whether the first nuclear test, whether it was going to stop or not. They didn't know whether it was just going to keep expanding out and literally, like, I don't know, wipe out the atmosphere or, wipe the Earth out just entirely. They didn't know. But they were like, you know what? Press the button. Let's do it. Okay. Anyways. And that is, it's pretty wild. Pretty wild story. I think lastly, I'm going to talk about this. Lula. Yeah, that's the other. Well, that another. Yeah, you're right. Creative experiments. The nuclear tests after World War II were even worse. Thousands of soldiers sent to Ground Zero to see the effects. Yeah, um, there were like soldiers very close by to a lot of these tests. Just to see how it went. Yeah. Lightning Rod says the group has a really positive name, like Climate Change News or something. Okay. Well, so they're like, yeah, this is about climate change. That's the new thing. It's just climate change is it's totally real, but it's not that bad. It's not that bad. It'll be fine. I mean, if we keep our economy, building the economy and adding, jobs and wealth, and then we'll be insulated from the effects of climate change, right? It's because it's just going to impact our wealth a little bit, but everything else will be okie dokie. Or present yourself as an environmentalist, talking about how all these plans to combat climate change, they're all fake mustache twirling elites trying to get you to, they're going to lock you down, right? Like, oh, I'm an environmentalist, but any answer whatsoever, or anybody, talking about climate change, it's all, kind of presenting it in a way so that people come away from it thinking like, well, this climate change thing sure sounds like a ruse to me. It's a hoax. Okay. Right, but that's how they're presenting it. It's very sneaky. It's very tricky and very effective, actually. The shiny red button. The candy-like button. That's right, Basil Peterson. Anyway, so, yeah, the U.S. should stop encouraging the Ukraine war, Brazilian president says out loud, all out in the open, out into the air and stuff. The Ukraine war, I don't think is. I don't know how long they can really keep this up, because there's mutiny afoot, I think. I mean, the entire world is. The entire world is kind of turning on this whole idea of a Ukraine war, and people are not happy about it, and Europe is not happy about it, and regular people, Americans, are not happy about it. China's out, making peace treaties with countries in the Middle East, and right, undermining the U.S.'s influence on the world. We're looking more and more like, I don't know what, like out of control drunken bullies who are really very ineffective and impotent, and people are starting to get to catch on to this and get wise to it, and starting to say, yeah, I don't know if we're into this anymore. And then you have all the stories about money skimming coming out, and you have the Nord Stream stories coming out, and it's not. This is going to go, like extremely unpopular. It's already extremely unpopular, but it's going to go, even more so to that side, in short time. So I don't know how they're going to keep it going. There's a lot of people that suggest that maybe the U.S. is looking for a way out. That maybe we're we might, but that's not generally our MO. Our MO is to dig in for years. The Iraq, Afghanistan, Syria. What name some other ones, I guess. Somalia. Our MO is to dig in. We don't stop. We don't quit. We double down. And we're just how long have we been in Syria now? Almost 10 years. We were in Afghanistan for 20. We were officially in Iraq for 10 years or more, but we still are there. We still are all up in Iraq. So even though it would be nice to see the Ukraine thing wind down like super quickly, like maybe it would be nice to see them go like, oh yeah, our bad, maybe not. It would be cool to see that, but I just don't think that's going to happen. Because that's just not the way we work. And we are psychopath. The people that are running the show are super psychopathic, and they just don't. The thing about psychopaths and narcissists is they don't take an L, ever. Right? They don't go, oh yeah, my bad. Maybe we should get it. No, they don't ever do that. Oh yeah, sorry. No, they're like, what are you talking about? What are you talking about? What are you talking about? Are you no. They go harder. That's what happens with psychopaths. They go harder when presented with the concept of being wrong. They go harder. So I don't know. I don't have good feelings necessarily about it. Yeah. Yep. Creative experiments. My grandpa learned the hard way that Nazis don't surrender until their capital is burned to rubble. Yeah, I just don't, I mean, it would be, so I think maybe the only way out in a short term is for maybe to have the U.S.'s hand forced. Right? If there's a I just don't see them working on like common sense where it's like, oh, this is a losing proposition and everybody kind of sees the game and they, nobody, people are quickly turning against us and against this whole thing and, maybe we should cut our losses. Like that common sense reaction, they can't. They're not gonna go that route. So the only way out is if their hand is forced in some way, and I don't know what that way is. But otherwise, they're doubling down. Otherwise, they want to see this drag on for another 10 years. They're, this is we're just in the beginning. To them, we just started. What? It's like a year old, 2 years old. I don't know how many years it's been going. A year? It's only a year old. I mean, Jesus. They got, another decade to keep sloshing around in Ukraine. But Lula said, no, maybe you guys shouldn't do this. Brazilian President Da Silva said on Saturday that the United States should stop encouraging the war in Ukraine. The United States needs to stop encouraging war and start talking about peace. Peace. The European Union needs to start talking about peace so that we can convince Putin and Zelensky that peace is in the interest of everyone and that war is only interesting for now to the two of them. Interesting way to put it. And Lula also revealed that during his talks with Chinese leader Xi Jinping, they discussed forming a group of like-minded leaders on Ukraine. Here's the hand-forcing part that I'm talking about. If they can get enough, maybe get enough countries, if enough countries can kind of, maybe do a reverse sanction on the U.S., throw some European countries in there too. We might just be like, oh yeah, we gotta Ooh, yeah, we gotta. Yeah, maybe we gotta get out of here. Why don't you get out of here? Why don't you get out of here, Franklin? Okay. Um. Lula also revealed that during his talks with Chinese leader Xi Jinping, they discussed forming a group of like-minded leaders on Ukraine. I have a theory that I have already. Oh, and also Macron. Shoot, I forgot about that one. Macron recently said, "I don't know. I don't know about this Ukraine thing," which was people were like, "What?" Macron. Macron is like the WEF poster boy. Um, right? He seems to be Mister. He seems to be one of the many Western leaders that toes the party line mostly. But he actually said, "Well, I don't know." Well, let's stay with Brazil for a second. I have a theory that I've already defended with Macron, with Olaf Scholz of Germany, and with Biden. And yesterday we discussed it at length with Xi Jinping. It is necessary to constitute a group of countries willing to find a way to make peace. The U.S. and EU have been major suppliers of arms and aid to Ukraine following Russia's invasion. Zelensky has ruled out peace talks as long as Putin remains in power. Anyways, like many leaders in middle income and developing countries, Lula has adopted a policy of non-intervention over the war in Ukraine, rebuffing efforts led by Joe Biden to unite the global community in opposition to Russia's invasion. Not so much. But let's jump over to what Macron was saying. Macron counting on China's Xi to reason with. He wants them to reason with Russia over Ukraine war. But this isn't necessarily. Anyways, Macron met with Xi. And Macron said that he is ready to call Ukrainian President Zelensky at the right moment about peace talks. Very interesting. Ahead of the meetings, Macron appeared optimistic about working with China to move toward peace. But anyways, China has been mediating peace talks around the world, globally, and people are kind of looking at Xi Jinping and going like, well, can you get in here and maybe do something that the U.S. obviously is unwilling to do? I don't know if this is necessarily the story I was looking for. Let's see. Yeah, I can't find it. Anyways, I don't know. Macron recently came out with some negative comments for what's going on in Ukraine. Maybe I can find it over here. Oh, here it is. America, this is it. Europe must resist pressure to become America's followers, said Macron. Say what? That's interesting. That's an interesting thing to say, right? The great risk Europe faces is getting caught up in crises that are not ours, French president says in interview. Wow, that is, I wonder what he's talking about. Europe must reduce its dependency on the United States and avoid getting dragged into a confrontation between China and the U.S. over Taiwan. Macron said in an interview on his plane back from a 3-day visit to China. Macron emphasized his pet theory of strategic autonomy for Europe, presumably led by France, to become a third superpower. Wow. So it sounds like even Europe is kind of might be, turning the other way towards the U.S., right, and not like facing with the U.S. as allies. And there's been a few other leaders in Europe going, turning to face the U.S. and go, no, I don't, no, we're not, I don't want to do this. Right. Which is an interesting development. We'll see where that goes. Xi Jinping and the Chinese Communist Party have enthusiastically endorsed Macron's concept of strategic autonomy, and Chinese officials constantly refer to it in their dealings with European countries. Huh. The paradox, said Macron. Party leaders and theorists in Beijing are convinced the West is in decline and China is on the ascendant, and that weakening the transatlantic relationship will help accelerate this trend. The paradox would be that, overcome with panic, we believe we are just America's followers, Macron said in an interview. The question Europeans need to answer is it in our interest to accelerate a crisis on Taiwan? No. The worst thing would be to think that Europeans must become followers on this topic and take our cue from the U.S. agenda and a Chinese overreaction. Okay. Well, I'm going to leave it there. Thanks, guys. Thanks for hanging out. I will see you all tomorrow at the regular time of 12 p.m. Pacific Daylight Time. And appreciate you all hanging out with me today and every day. And I will see you tomorrow. Until next time, peace.